In this video, I'm going to explain to you how makeup is a magical act and even a form of mysticism. Let's do it. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, why am I spending so many hours doing makeup? And I realized it's because it's a form of magic and mysticism. Here's why. Makeup is essentially a 2D art form. It's kind of two-dimensional. I mean, it's 3D, but it's you're working kind of on a 2D plane of makeup. The makeup itself is a 2D plane, and then you're putting that on a 3D object, the face, right? And you're taking this 2D art form to create the illusion of more 3D and suggesting relationships between shapes and between dimensions and all this awesome stuff. You know, whether it's changing the way your nose looks or shortening the forehead or kind of drawing the eyes and creating this diagonal kind of, it's all about manipulating shape and space, and it's all about suggestion. Keep that in mind, okay? When we're doing magic, what we're doing is we are organizing a sensation and idea together, okay? So we might be, let's say, working with a picture or drawing a circle or drawing pentagrams in the air or visualizing something, and then we're taking that in combination with certain sensations, whether it's something we're doing with our body, our posture, our movement, or maybe we're lighting certain incense or eating something specific, the sacrament, that kind of stuff. Magic is all about the fusion between the sensory world in some way and the mental world in some way, which is actually the same thing when you go deep enough, but you're taking those together and you're manipulating reality. You are, like Crowley says, bending reality to your will. Magic is the art and science of causing change to occur in conformity with your will. And so what happens is when you're manipulating sensation and idea, you are creating suggestion. You are suggesting to yourself a reality, a new reality, as opposed to maybe an old reality, to get things going in the direction you want. And in so doing, you may argue that you are suggesting the outer world as well. And you may argue that the outer world and the inner world that you're suggesting are actually the same thing. What's really the difference? Where do you end and where do you begin, right? That's a whole nother video. Yeah, so you're creating suggestion. And that's exactly what makeup does. It creates suggestion through contrast and color and fading and all this stuff to enhance or elaborate upon what's already there, which is the face. So it's not so much hiding, but it's expressing, elaborating. And when you look at high magic specifically, high magic is divine elaboration of consciousness. It is divine extrapolation of what already is, and that's the beautiful point. Because in high magic, the main difference between high magic and low magic is getting a result in this world, in this matrix, something delicious, something yummy, getting that piece of candy, getting that raise, getting that lover, whatever. It's a little bit more results oriented. High magic is about realizing what you are. It's like ascending into the great all, going into God form, going into Super Saiyan mode. And that's where it overlaps with mysticism. And mysticism is any path or philosophy or method or belief or mode of realizing the self within God or within the source or within the ultimate creator or within everything. It's very similar to high magic. And when we're doing high magic, we use a lot of God names and we kind of over describe consciousness. We over elaborate everything in the mind through all types of symbolism and idea. If you think about like the pentagram ritual, you're using all these different names of God. You're calling in the elements, the archangels, you're kind of seeing yourself in 3 dimensions with the cross, etc., all of that. The rose cross, for example, is like an elaboration of the question, what is space and what are we doing in space, right? Because the rose cross is a cube that when you open up a cube, you get these 6 squares that creates a cross. So that cube is the 3 dimensions, and within those 3 dimensions we have the cube of space, so we have the planets in there, we have the signs and the Hebrew letters and all that. It's all elaboration. It's all complication. It's all, in some ways, division for the chance of union, which is what is said in the Book of the Law. So makeup does the same thing. And There's ego involved, but I feel like when you go far enough in any of these areas in mysticism or high magic, you realize that, there's an ego death. That's a thing, but the essence of what dies never really was to begin with. So it's not like you're like trying to like surgically remove this bad part of you. It's the realization that that part of you, this ego, never really was anything. It's an illusion. It's an illusion to do something, and that is the same with makeup. You are working and playing with an illusion, not because you need it, but because it does something, because it's fun. It's part of a dance. It's just play. The tarot is just play. The tarot is a playful, contemplative wardenship of reality and consciousness. It is a expression and an illustration of what already is, not something that you have to necessarily even learn or get to. It's just play. And that is what makeup is as well. It's just play and playing with the illusion of what already is. Okay, here's part two. Ready for part two? Let's talk about ego a little bit, because even though ego doesn't exist, the illusion of it does. Makeup is this, like I said, this kind of essentially 2D art form that is placed on a 3D medium, the face, and it creates illusions of 3D. But what's more is that those illusions of 3D create illusions of 4D. Okay, I'm going to explain this one. It's going to be a fun one. If you haven't watched my Matrix video, and I'll link it below, and that's where I talk about the different dimensions and ego and time, go watch that. It'll make this more clear. But the basic idea is the 3D makeup supports your sense of self, which is in 4D, because 4D is the world of time, and it's also the world of ego. Now, listen, I'm not a theoretical physicist. I'm not saying that this is exactly it, but you get the general gist that ego and time are very much related. And the reason why is because the sense of ego requires the world of time to exist. The ego is a sense of self that exists because of an imagined past and an imagined future, right? Because of memory and because of imagination of the future, we render this idea of self. When in reality, if there's no time, there can't be a self. There's just the moment, which is everything and nothing. So when you are manipulating the 2D on the 3D face to manipulate the 3D to create more depth, you actually draw attention to the eyes, mirrors of the soul, and you kind of draw the focus to the face. And most people will attribute their ego or their self to be somewhere around here, around the third eye or in the brain somewhere. So we're actually creating and suggesting through the context of color manipulation, we are drawing more attention to this area of our body, which is where we attribute the self, the ego. So that 3D illusion is kind of further extrapolating upon the 4D illusion of the meanness that exists in this moment, but is rendered through my sense of the past and the future and time. So that's a fun one to play with. I think what's even more profound about makeup, and this is kind of where I get into the mysticism aspect of it, is it forces you to face yourself. Like any good form of self-development, healing, artistry, meditation, it forces you to face yourself. And I mean that literally. Like freaking literally. Face yourself in the mirror for however long you're there. And that's so beautifully sick and awesome. And there can be so much self-love in those moments. And also the revealing of so much self-hate as well. And we all got that. Because listen, if you're in this incarnation, you're on the path to self-love too. We're all on the path. But yeah, it just gets you to face yourself and sit with yourself, just like any meditation. And so for that reason, I find it really, really grounding. If you watch any of my work, you know I'm a head tripper. I love the world of ideas. Love the world of ideas. And the world of matter is, we're getting along much better than we were before, but we're kind of taking it slow. So something like makeup for me is like super grounding. So the point of this video is nothing, because it's just play like makeup, and it's just a good time. Let me know your thoughts about makeup, magic, and mysticism. And as always, contemplate, cognize, and comment your thoughts below. Much love.